we're looking at different deals, right? Looking at different deals, looking at different deals. Key things was preparation, process, expertise.
Superpowers you and I have is the ability to ask questions, like the right questions. Today's episode is going to be slightly different because you're going to hear me talk a lot. Why? Because it's an interview I had with my co-founder Ayo Disu at Octillion, which is our platform company. So we acquire and grow clean food and beverage brands, or clean consumer packaged good brands, and we do that on Octillion, which is our platform company. Ayo and I have been working for just over a year now together, well over a year actually, coming to a year and a half together. And this conversation is a reflection on this year, 2022. We made our first acquisition of a clean food brand called Lean Caffeine. It's more than a coffee brand; it's a food supplement brand, as well as a clean food supplement brand, as well as a clean coffee brand. It's been an exciting year, just operating that particular business, this particular brand, and scaling it and actually growing it. It's just different. So in this episode, you're going to just hear a conversation around what the process was like to acquiring this brand, our reflections on the deal, and also reflections on operating the business thus far, and our unique approach on leaning on people, processes and systems to actually run this brand, because we are on a mission to acquire and build a platform company with 20 brands in there. So it's a lot of work and also a lot of lots of just organization. So this is also an organizational efficiency project over the next decade. So enjoy this episode. Yeah. So how are you? How's it going?
Yeah, all good, all good, really. Just busy, as obviously. But it's been a very interesting year, filled with a lot of learnings. I would say overall, I think it's been a very strong year for us in terms of development of the company. I'm guessing also ourselves. A lot of learnings, and I am very excited for 2023 and the future of obviously the company and our companies in the future. So yeah, it's been a great year, and I'm guessing that's what we're here to talk about, right? Looking back, reflect on.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I echo your sentiments. Huge milestone this year. Our last conversation, when you're on the pod, we hadn't made an acquisition at the time, and I'd say we were like 60-70% in on our value structure, like our mission at the time, and we doubled down. Just to rehash, the last time we spoke on 3 core values. One was sustainability, another was just that omni-channel footprint, and another was inclusion. And we just felt there was something missing. We hadn't quite dialed in. Do you want to speak to that, and in terms of what our mission has evolved to?
Yeah, absolutely. So funny enough, I was actually speaking to someone about this morning, just around like why having a clear criteria is extremely important, but taking that into kind of like what we are doing now at Octillion, I think it stemmed from, and usually it's the best place to start is at home, right? They always say. And for us, I think when we looked into our own personal lives, you from your own health angle, myself from, I would say, my own decision angle in terms of just my philosophy, it was evident, and also just looking at kind of like trends, right? Macro trends. It was evident that we needed to focus on something that was more than just inclusion, sustainability, And that omni-channel footprint, I think that is a staple really for any kind of like consumer brand. But we essentially said, look, what is the problem that we're trying to solve on a macro level? And what we decided on, and what we obviously what the research led us to, is the food epidemic as well as toxic skincare practices. And that has essentially now led us onto the path that we're on now, in which a refined, I would say, mission is that we're looking to acquire clean consumer brands in the food and beverage space and in the beauty space. So clean brands, and what that encapsulates is so clean from an ingredient standpoint, meaning that they have transparency in the ingredients, natural, organic. From a food standpoint, it means low carb, it means eco, it means high protein, and it means just good for you. So that is the refined statement. So essentially, we're just looking to acquire and build a clean consumer brand conglomerate on those tenants. So yeah, I think that is our mission. I don't know if you have any other thing to add onto that as well.
just just stepping back to the diversity and mini-channel and sustainability play. I think that's a fundamental DNA of any impact company. But it would vary, right? Some impact companies um, would kind of skew or over-index on, say, inclusion, for instance. Others might over-index on sustainability and be really, really, detailed about their sustainability credentials. But I think every company should have those three. At least every modern company should have those three tenets. Because for an enterprise that's for an enterprise organization that's pretty much quite rigid. It's that added flexibility. It takes a bit of an effort. It's like an elephant, trying to sort of move through a pathway or a gate, a limited gate. It's not like the elephant won't be able to go through. It's just it will take a bit of effort and orchestration and moving, but we're more agile. And yeah, so from a personal perspective, cholesterol, um, fighting out fats, just making sure that I personally don't put on weight. Fitness has been a core in my life, and you could one of the things that weigh or has weighed me down personally has been diet. Just education on diet. I've endeavored to educate myself from a dietary perspective, and besides diet, it's been as in fitness, it's been lockdown, and just habits. And what I've come to the realization is a lot of the food choices we're made to think that we have food choices when we go into the grocery aisles, but we don't. Most of the foods we essentially consume, most of the mainstream foods we consume, we've learned to consume foods we consumed while growing up, have been controlled by very few firms that essentially optimize their products for repeat purchase. So they want to create habits, which is which is essential, right? And so they put added ingredients that may or may not be healthy, or detrimental to the health of consumers, and they get us buying the if it's cereal, the ketchup or whatever, over and over again, because we're so accustomed to that taste. I remember, so I personally, my palate for like soda, for like Coca-Cola, for instance, my palate for Coca-Cola is bland, as in I just know when I'm drink, I just feel it's cola, right? But for my wife, she'll know if it's the normal sugar Coca-Cola. She'll know with a blind taste. She'll know whether it's diet or whether it's Coke Zero. And she has a choice. She knows what she likes, right? And a lot of consumers, are like that in the sense that they just habitually buy the same old stuff. And for me, many years ago, having had a health scare, one of the ways I really liberated myself was just going on a low inflammation, diet, at the time. And that just changed my life, fitness and a low inflammation diet, really, really changed my mind. And so when we saw this target, right, which by the way is called Lean Caffeine, um, I'm not sure if we'd over our last conversation we were actually in talks with the founder. We booked when we spoke with the founder and we heard the founder's story. We looked through their portfolio of products from a due diligence standpoint. It really aligned with both our values. It was like it's like a triad where the founder's values, whose name is Jamie, your values, my values all just came in. The numbers did make sense. Yeah, it was incredible. Do you want to do you have any thoughts on
Yeah,
that?
absolutely. I think when we came across, and the funny thing about this is that when you don't have a clear criteria, and this was us going back to what we were doing initially, is that we're looking at different deals, right? Looking at different deals, looking at
Mm-hmm.
different deals. And one, that's just not the best use of your time, or wasn't really
Mm-hmm.
the best use of our time because we didn't really follow through on most of those deals, and it was just a lot of work and back and forth and mental space effort, real estate. And also, I think the other thing is the framework that you use to assess some of those deals, right? Which for me is like one of the most important things. Because we have this clarity, this focus, now when we're looking at new opportunities, we're able to be quicker because we know this is what we're looking for. This is what we're looking for now. If we see a deal, it's not for us. It's just going out the door. It's going to someone else in our network, or we're just saying sorry, it's just not for us, and we're just passing it on. But it's giving us that mental space to more or less like think, refine our processes, and then pick the right, essentially pick the winners. And with going back to Lean Caffeine, when we I don't know if you remember, but we initially came across Lean Caffeine before we actually honed down on our values or on our strategy, on our
Yeah,
direction. But at the time, because we
yeah,
didn't really know what we wanted, we would have missed out on that opportunity. But for me, I think Link of Theme was our deal. It was meant for us. Like it was just written in the stars. And when we actually then honed down on our mission, literally, like we just went back to Atelier, who was the broker on this deal. Very good guy from Switzerland, Geneva. And we just went back to him, asked him, "Hey, Atelier, is this opportunity on the market?" He was like, "Yeah." And we obviously had the conversation with Jamie. We spoke to him. We got on, and as you alluded to earlier, Link Affine's mission not only did it match with obviously our personal philosophy, but also it matched with the Octillion direction. Like it's our genesis. It's the company that I think we would look back and say, okay, this is where we started, and more or less it essentially sets us up for future potential acquisition of obviously within that space, and it's giving us a working platform for obviously for future acquisitions that we're making. So yeah, I think it was. I'm actually in hindsight, if you think about it, it's actually very good that we didn't first find our criteria or first hone down on a criteria, right? Because I think it it comes through reiteration and refinement. as opposed to like just
Mm,
finding it in that one goal. It doesn't happen that way. It's too perfect. I think
yeah,
with this, we've taken our scars, but those scars, they're meaningful, meaning that in the
yeah,
future, we know exactly kind of where we want to play. And yeah, Lean Caffeine is, I think, was a or is a fantastic start for us. And we're looking for 20 more Lean Caffeines, obviously at different stages, but still underpinning those core values of clean, healthy, good for you, more or less.
yeah, yeah. And just to clarify, along with the mission, where when I said or when you said that essentially that we're a conglomerate, um, we were I really like how specific you were and how persistent the statement is from the get go, which was like, we're not Amazon
Mm.
aggregators. You'd always said it. But initially, I just brushed it up. Of course, we're not. I thought, no, we're not. But with the clarity of, the focus on ethical, clean brands that are, that we can ingest or apply on our skins, ingest into our bodies or apply on our bodies. It is giving us, so it just sets us up to be, a conglomerate in the sense that we're looking to acquire 20 e-commerce first food and beverage clean skincare brands um, over the next decade, and operate them to substantial sizes, portfolio. And just that clarity is really, really, really important in terms of like, the Amazon aggregator model not being that. Okay, so for listeners, I would like you to sort of break down your key learnings from the acquisition journey, from like acquiring this company. But before you do that, I just want to make a point that I remember when we were speaking to a potential investor, and he was like, what are you, his summary essentially. These are not exact words. We're like, what are you guys fighting? What are you fighting for? What are you solving? What problem are you solving? What are you solving? What impact are you essentially making? And it really, really took us back into, the drawing board to really reflect, and hence that sort of paved a way. And I do see Octillion as an impact mission driven company. We're not about survival. It's just not about making money. Money will come. It's the change we're making that will create new value that will be rewarded long term. So just going back to the reflecting on the entire process, from speaking to Attila, having conversations with Jamie, we had our financial criteria. It passed with flying colors in terms of the financial due diligence metrics, and then we started to look at other things in their stack. Do you want to speak to the other aspects we looked at, and just a reflection on key moments of over the acquisition
Yeah,
process?
it's a fantastic point, and I could not agree more with you on just what we who we are at Octillion. Essentially, I completely agree with you. You create value, money will come. Um, for me, I think looking back, key reflections. I want to keep it like sweet and like sharp, and I've just written down some stuff as we were thinking, just to like summarize. So, three key things was preparation, process, expertise. Preparation is the first thing I want to talk about. I think from an acquisition standpoint, we were very prepared. Um, I think we had our processes like from the get-go, from all the way down from when we first like issued out the LOI all the way down to just collecting data, analyzing the data. It was it was fairly prepared. We had those, I would say, those systems set up before we needed them, I think. And then the second thing is expertise. I remember when I was actually out of the office, and then you send me a voice note saying, "Hey, I am on the diligence of LC moving into the Amazon Seller Central, but Amazon yeah, Seller Central, and we need to bring in an expert to give us visibility." And then we brought in an expert, right? And he gave us a lot of visibility. He gave us a lot of learnings that we then took, documented it down, wrote it down, thought about it, and then derived questions for obviously Jamie, and also with the other partners that were on this deal with us from a financing perspective, also from an operational perspective. You can see they appreciated that level of thoroughness. And it's the same thing I was speaking to somebody about this morning, just around like there's some things that you can do yourself, but doesn't necessarily mean you should do them yourself. And that's where the expertise comes in. The fact that we brought in this person to really give us this picture of what this business is, and he gave us an unbiased opinion. Because even in your in your diligence, you can there's a chance for a little bit of bias to slip in because you want it to go through, right?
Yeah.
So expertise. So I think we're very prepared, and it's good to be prepared. We've taken a lot of lessons from our first acquisition because I think it was very smooth, but our next one will be even smoother. Touch wood. Expertise,
Mhm.
outsourcing, and just the capabilities, like what we're looking for. Because we didn't just bring on anyone. We brought in someone that we felt we could mold and work with long term. And that's all we're always optimizing for long term partnerships with key relevant players. Final part was on processes. I think if I'm maybe now I'm speaking to more of a post-acquisition outlook, but with obviously what we've done, one is obviously the introduction and the what's it called? Yeah, the introduction of an acquisition integration specialist that has helped us like extract essentially the business from Jamie's head into a document, a working document that we have visibility over, and then we can actually use to now make informed decisions on current processes that are obviously working, that are not working, and then future processes. And I think that is a game changer. I don't know, but for me, especially just having that oversight of the business, how it's working, how obviously all these nuts and bolts come into play, and it's
Yeah.
just giving us, I think, a very good starting point to implement our growth plans.
Yeah.
And I think those for me are the three key things. So being prepared, having experts in the right area, and just establishing
Hmm.
processes. One from obviously knowing what processes are in place already, and then using that as a stepping stone
Hmm.
to implement new processes that obviously take the company from where it is now to where we want it to be in the future.
Yeah. 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 So really, having that plan in place, mapping out the journey and actually taking that journey
Hmm.
with the right people, there. So people, processes, systems. It's something we've talked about. I think the first book or I gifted
The
you was
email.
the E Myth. You've devoured it over and over again. And it's down to people, processes, and
Systems.
people and processes, and systems essentially. My next sort of mind blowing book is the you know is
Mm,
the Who Not the How by
mm,
Dan Sullivan, another a great book, and that touches on the people, the expertise piece you're talking to, and a lot of the time we're consumed by ego, you know, particularly, at least personally speaking, from a consultant standpoint, you're paid to be the smartest person in the room, and if you're not, you'll not be in the room for a long time. That's a world of consultancy, because you lose your value. Your value is your knowledge, right? As a consultant rather, or a consultancy or an agency, what you bring to the table, and if you're charged with execution, if it goes wrong a few times, it might be okay depending on the culture of the company, but if it keeps going wrong, you'll be out. So transitioning from that consultancy mindset to a leader, whereby you have teams, you have people, you have departments, you have systems, you have people you trust. You have to learn to trust. And I was just listening to something on he's the founder of a company called GoFit or LiveFit. They're based out in California, and he was like, look, when I started my business, this business about 20 or so $30 million in revenue, profitable and all. It's an apparel business. It's like, look, man, I used to give 100% in everything. And he realized that as the company is scaling, he needs to hire people who cannot give 100%. Even if they give 70%, it's better than him stretching himself 100% and having nothing left. And it's like, if you scale the 70% across the board, then you're building out a system. You're building out a scalable system, essentially. But I digress. So I do definitely agree with you, on that point, on the people piece, on the processes and the acquisition, the process acquisition, the process extraction experts we brought on board, and just the business as it is sellable, because should anybody come in to the business, we know our numbers. We, not to say that we're selling, we're not for sale, not anytime soon, but we're ready. As you said, it goes back to your point on, being prepared. And we should always be in that mode, preparation mode, always there, always ready. And, you're a process guy. You're very, very, diligent, you're very process oriented, and you take your time to really observe. You're a listener, which is just phenomenal. But yes, I recall your point on me looking at Amazon Central, Seller Central, and saying I'm probably not the best person, but I think the key superpowers you and I have is the ability to ask questions, like the right questions. What do you think? What do you
I
say to
think
that?
before I even answer that question, it goes back. What you just said is you're talking about ego, right? And just I'm guessing like managing your ego, or at least being aware of the ego, right? And I think one thing
Mm-hmm.
here is that we leave ego at the door. Like it's not about your ego. Right now, I think especially in our roles as it's growing, we're servants. Servants to our people, servants to our
Mm-hmm.
customers, servants to our stakeholders. But the point that you
Mm-hmm.
just made now, I think is a fantastic point on you realize I'm probably not the best guy for this, but you didn't let your ego get in the way to say, okay, look, well, I think I'm fairly smart and I can figure it out. Because I think you saw the bigger picture, right? You're like, look, if you want to do this properly, we need to bring in someone that can like at least do a lot of the like the technical bits, and then you then come in, ask the right questions, and use the data that you've gotten to obviously make informed decisions, right? So I think that's an excellent point, and the fact
Mm-hmm.
that you're even just like aware of that is I think it's obviously why we partner well together, because yeah, it's very rare. So yeah, but to your point on like questions, absolutely, I think that's something that you do very very well, which is like you're able to digest a lot of information, right? And I think it's come from the most unassuming place, which is actually your podcast, because you ask
Mm-hmm.
questions on your podcast with your guest. You're obviously the interviewer, so I'm guessing for your podcast preparation, like I'm gonna do a little bit of research on this guy, but it's probing, it's probing, it's probing, it's probing, it's
Mm-hmm.
probing. And I completely agree with you. If you don't ask the right questions, how are you going to find essentially like the right information that would then allow you to make the right decision? Because there are different layers of
Mm-hmm.
questions, wouldn't you say, of like, Yeah, I can ask a very basic question and get a very basic answer to make a very basic decision. But if I ask a top level question that
Mm-hmm.
gives me top level information, I can make a top level decision, hopefully. But I completely agree with
Mm-hmm.
you in that respect for sure.
Interesting, super, super interesting. Yeah, I, I think, yeah, I think I've definitely changed. So we've been operating this business since about September 2000 and this year, September this year, 2022. If you're listening to this in 2023, since September 2020, we closed the deal. And I think we'll talk about that shortly. But do you want to break down the structure of the deal, top level structure? I think there was a press release, announcement where we broke the structure. We were on the
Okay.
private equity
Yes, sir.
magazine called The Deal, where we made the announcement. Do you want to sort of break that
Yeah,
down as an
sure.
M&A?
I will break it
Yeah,
down. Not obviously going into too much
person.
detail, but more or less how it
Yep.
worked was that we did an equity. Well, we did an asset purchase. Well, actually, we did a share purchase agreement. So we bought the entire company. And it's a UK-based business, so we have like an agreement, like a share purchase agreement, SPA, as we refer to it.
Mm-hmm.
And within that, really, it was an upfront payment to Jamie for, I believe, around 55%, in which we
Mm-hmm.
obviously paid him after close of the deal, so that he obviously got some capital in his pockets and extracted some value out of the company, which was financed a bit from obviously our investors slash lenders, Bopos, a bit of
Mm-hmm.
equity finance as well, and the remaining is via an earnout. So Jamie is on an earnout for us
Mm-hmm.
for at least the next, I think, 28 to 32 months. Um, which I think for me is like any deal we do, we'll just have that earn out, that seller, like a little bit of seller financing to ensure that the seller is aligned with us. And
Mm-hmm.
we've structured it in a way in which we're not actually having, we don't have any interest payments on the seller note. It's just a straight,
Mm-hmm.
what's it called, um, payment schedule on
Payment
specific
schedule.
dates. So
Mm-hmm.
that in essence is just the top level of the deal structure. It will vary deal by deal, I'm guessing, for future acquisitions, but yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. And the the nice thing about this was it didn't have facilities, although it's in our roadmap for us to obviously own our facilities. It was a great business, and it is still growing in all of the mess at a macroeconomic level, with inflation, with inflation and the state of the economy in Britain in particular. It is still, growing with those, headwinds essentially. And that's because the um, the portfolio of products, or better still, the product offering of the business essentially serves a very, very meaningful purpose and function in the lives of its customer base, right? They buy it for a purpose, and this is it's moat, more or less. Yeah, amazing, amazing. So I wanted to reflect on, like my um just my perspective as a consultant versus an operator now. Just wanted to reflect on that, and I would say I am listening more. I'm listening more, a lot more, and I'm more patient. I've had to understand myself a lot more so I can understand people. I don't think you can understand people until you understand yourself.
Mhm.
And one thing I've really started to hone in on is just meditation. As in, I meditate a minimum of 30 minutes a day. I can meditate for 45 minutes straight. I could even do an hour. I haven't tried an hour yet. I've tried 45 minutes and it was a breeze. I didn't want it to even stop. But on a daily basis, obviously due to my commitment, I'm a family man. We have 3 kids. We're a family of 5. I put a minimum of 30 minutes. Sometimes I would do 30 minutes before sleep and 30 minutes upon wake. And just being in the company of yourself reveals so much to you. I've done it without fail for at least the last 90 days, right? And the one I do not miss is the morning one, right? And so that's given me perspective. It's probably made me just quieter to listen. I think as an operator, you should really listen. That's been my key takeaway, being patient and that delegation piece, and trust in people, competent to take off the burden on you. Just imagine with the output we have on process mapping of the entire business. Just imagine if you tried to do it yourself, or I tried to take a stab at it, how lackluster, it would be, because we're not specialists, right? So it's been incredible. Just obviously everything is down to your resources, as to, at certain points in time, you may be able to, afford certain experts, and further as you evolve, the game will change with the ecosystem around you. But how do you maximize? The question I keep asking myself is, how do you maximize the resources around you and empower them so they feel valued? Those are my reflections, at the operator standpoint. And for me also, it's about the data. So the people are so important, and understanding the people, that's the more fluid, left brain side of operations. But there's also like the numbers, just seeing patterns and understanding, okay, what SKUs need a variation, for instance, or what's our product roadmap going to look like, product launch roadmap going to look like, or why is this just peaked? Is there any trend? So there's a lot of sort of pattern. You're just looking at data and patterns, so you can essentially drive or ask more probing questions, or make key decisions, or or give key instructions to move it in the direction you need. It's like a dial, right? Like a dashboard in a car, or a dashboard on a boat or an airplane. It gives you. You need it. You can't just fly blind, right? Or
Mm.
drive blind.
Yeah, no,
Your
super,
thoughts?
super interesting. And yeah, very interesting on the meditation bit, like I've heard a lot of people obviously talk about meditation, how they use it. And yeah, it always seems to have like a very good impact, right? On your mind, I think meditation is just all about like regulation, right? Like regulating your body, regulating your mind, regulating your thoughts. Um, I don't meditate. I'm more of a journal man. As you obviously my philosophy about stoicism and all of that, which I think is just a
Mm.
like fantastic tool for like self mastery, developing like perseverance, and essentially like a tool that you can use to live a great life, as opposed to like some esoteric field of academic inquiry. Like it's one of the reasons why I like stoicism, and I think it's really helping me here, is just because stoicism is for doers. I think both of us are doers. Like, yeah, we'll talk, we'll strategize, but after we have our call, there is execution. And that's where the beauty, that's where the art actually happens in the execution. Um, for me, big takeaways on obviously now being like, will I say leader or at least like in maybe a leadership position is more around like problem solving and also like developing my mind. I think for me, those two things are just like critical, like absolutely critical. Um, Problem solving just because of everything that happens on a day-to-day basis, just knowing, and I think also two, the two go in kind of like in sync in that if I develop my mind, I'm able to solve problems maybe quicker, maybe better, and also like I'm not doing it by myself. I'm obviously I'm working collaboratively with you and all the guys that are in our system, but just that piece and how I'm just doing that is for me like I'm reading stuff like How to Think Like a Roman Emperor. Like Marcus Aurelius for me is just a fantastic case study with all the responsibilities that he had. I don't have kids yet, but I can imagine what that would mean because you have like obviously your responsibilities from a business standpoint, you have your responsibilities from a family standpoint, and you're solving problems on both of those spectrums. Um, but for me, it's more or less like how can I develop my mind to make sure that I'm ahead of the curve so that if the team asks me, oh, how do we do this? How do we do this? There's a solution, right? Because again, like a lot of the
Mm-hmm.
confidence from our team will come from us. It will come from our ability to solve problems. It will come from our abilities to react appropriately to the situation. If, for example, we're like in a large meeting and like everyone is stressed and we're stressed as well, it's like imagine if you're on a plane and then you hear the pilot saying, oh my God, what are we going to do? You as a passenger,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think you're going to do? You're going to react the same way, if not worse. So it's really just
Mm-hmm.
about that development of my mind, and for me, how I'm doing that is really just around that my journaling, my stoicism. I've been through a lot of my life, so I think I can deal with a lot of things. But again, like that's no excuse, right, for just like letting your mind be idle. I think you just have to constantly work on it. And yeah, the main point is just around like problem solving. I think you're a really good problem solver, which I'm learning from. Just how to like come up with interesting solutions to problems that we face. And yeah, I think again, if this is like 1 out of 20, right? Imagine when we have like five,
Mm-hmm.
10, 15, 20 businesses. Like if
Yeah.
our mind isn't really at that optimum level, and again, like I'm not saying, oh, you need to be the smartest person in the room. Actually, you probably shouldn't. You should be, I'd say, a very good judge of character, judge of people, to obviously bring those guys into the room that believe in our vision. But we just need to, at least I need to, constantly just develop my mind so that I can solve problems that we have. So yeah, I think that for me is just like one of my biggest, I'd say, learning points plus also like points for improvement
Mm-hmm.
moving forward.
Super interesting the point you make about like a nervous, leader, and that just is not really a vote of confidence, to the passengers. If you're using the analogy of an airplane, and I can tell you as a parent, if a child, a baby, right? So I'm talking like a toddler, if a 1 year old or a 2 year old sees you're losing control in their engagement, let's say they're throwing a tantrum,
Hmm.
you lose. You're losing there, and you're actually losing points, on your ability to influence because you don't control the child. You influence the child to make decisions. You actually lose. You lose that battle, but if you don't take care, if that continues as a cycle where you get overwhelmed by their you said deregulation. I like the word when you talk about meditation is regulation. Their deregulation, what then happens is the child picks up on that, and then they're in control. And if they're in control of that relationship, then all sorts of behavioral challenges start to come to play because you can't regulate them, right? So that stability, mental stability, being calm, still showing consequences in a calm way. If that happens, these are the consequences. Being positive, so if a child throws a tantrum and actually, they're expecting a particular response from you, and you spin it on its head and you show the bright side of it, or you change it to something else, it excites them, it surprises them, it's a switch, it's just it's reflexive. You take control, and it's super important. It's super important, and I really like that point about stability. I think along with meditation, I've taken a leaf off your book on journaling. I've just started to journal for the past
Nice.
for most of this month. Every day of this month, I write my thoughts. Actually, right after my meditation in the morning. Start it out with my thoughts on gratitude. So I just train my brain to be grateful. Figure out what should I be grateful for, and I know if I struggle with that with those statements, then I know my mind was not necessarily that fine. My readiness for the day mentally would have been worse if I didn't really recalibrate to look at the things that I should be grateful for, and then just physical activity is really, really good. So this is quite as we wrap up, what do you think is the outlook for 2023 from an Octillion perspective, from our perspective? How many more acquisitions do you think will make this year? Is this a year of stability, stabilizing Lean Caffeine? How big? Is big the right word? How far will we go in
I think if you look at
2023?
it like now, right, you have volatile equity markets, you have essentially rising interest rates, you have economic uncertainty in the markets that the aggregators play in. I think like M&A activity has reduced by like 10 to 15% compared from like last year, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
you then have a situation in which you have like lower equity valuations. That's now giving more or less buyers lower purchasing power. Plus, also with the higher cost of financing, it's making acquisitions more expensive. I've just said all like bad stuff, right? But with that being said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still bullish. I think we are still bullish. I think we are looking to make more acquisitions next year. We will be making more acquisitions next year after hitting some key points, stage gates in LC's stabilization process, right? And for us, I think we've always
Mm-hmm.
placed onus on operating with excellence and also with discipline. And with that being said, um, I believe it's just down to, okay, how aggressive do we want to go? We've almost done two deals before the end of this year, but we had to pull the plug because they did not make sense financially. Not from a financing standpoint, but really just from a seller, I would say seller expectation standpoint. They weren't aligned with the markets essentially. If you remember the multiples they were asking for. But as you rightly said, within that
Mm-hmm.
period, you have to understand the psychology at that time to say, is this what my business is worth after my life's work? Again, I understand, but that's not how we can't afford to operate in that realm of emotional, um I would say emotional investment, more or less, because this is a business at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very, very optimistic on the market. I think it's a fantastic time to do acquisitions. I think we're seeing more and more interesting companies, at least brands, come to life. Um, and even just today, I saw very interesting opportunity. Don't know whether it's for sale, but it would be a fantastic addition to our portfolio. And yeah, I think for me, I'm really looking forward to what we do next year. Um, One from obviously like a Lean Caffeine standpoint, we're working on something very interesting from a rebranding standpoint for LC. And once that is done, I think people will get to understand the Octillion blueprint, because that will serve as kind of like a, oh, this is more or less like our signature, and it's just the first one. So yeah, I'm bullish. I'm looking forward to all that we have to do. I think for me, like I've told you severally, is I want to build a stellar team, mate. Like I want to build like the Chicago Bulls for Octillion, for our marketplace company. Like I just want, again, doesn't need to they don't even need to be superstars, but I think, or they don't need to be extraordinary. Just they just need to be ordinary people that can do extraordinary things and that believe in our vision, that want to work with us, and they're ready to like actually put in the work.
Absolutely, absolutely. I 100%, agree and aligned with you. I do think that there's always this fluidity. You know, back in April, May when we were on the pod, um, we were, we had our playbook. Our playbook is our playbook, and the market, you know, said something, gave us feedback. We self reflected and we navigated to where we are now. We do have our plan. We're looking at 20 brands. We'll acquire you know a few more brands in 2023. But you never can tell. What if one of the brands is $100 million dollar company? That would we still need 20?
Great question.
I
Yep.
I it's a thought, right? So, what if Lean Caffeine is our platform company and all we're doing is just, buying supply chains from other brands, right? Because we're trying to chunk it up and, make it a singular so company. Who knows? We don't know. But the one thing we want to do
Hmm.
is not stay stagnant. We don't want to. Neither
Hmm.
do we want to go into a state of entropy. We're not contracting. We want to expand. So our next conversation will be better. We'll be in a better place than now, because of what we're doing. This is not left to touch wood or lock or stuff like that. It's because of how we turn up on a daily basis, how we're approaching this. There's the confidence that this will be much bigger than what it is now, from the impact it is making, to the base. We will continue to create value. That's our remit as as co-founders for what we're doing at Octillion, and
Nice
those
one,
are
mate.
those are
No,
my
I
five
couldn't have said
cents
it
there.
better. Yeah, I was looking for like a rap lyric just to like end it off, but I can't actually think of one. I was thinking of like some Pete Rock stuff, but it doesn't actually doesn't actually align with this conversation. But yeah, nice one. I agree.
Amazing, amazing, amazing stuff, partner. So, yeah, thanks for everybody listening. If you don't know about our brands, head over to octillioncapitalpartners.com. I will link to it in the show notes. We'll be having more in depth conversations in 2023 and also in person events if you're in London. What more can I say? Catch Ayo on LinkedIn. Just type out Ayo Disu, AYO space DISU. You find him. You'll also find him on
So
Instagram,
it's
even
not
though his
private
Instagram is
anymore.
still on private.
Uh,
It's not private. Okay, you've
go
gone
public
public
now. My
now.
fans will call it.
Yeah, so he's an active man also on Instagram. So we'll link to his socials on here. And if you want to have a conversation to find out more about what we're doing at Octillion, our mission, if the mission really aligns with you, let us know. We just want to have conversations, right? So reach out to either of us. Everybody have a fantastic new year ahead. Hope 2022 was great. However challenging it was, wish you a much better 2023, regardless of how 2022 panned out. Cheers.